Hi everyone, it's David. Week 11 out here in Korea, and this week started off a little gloomy and wet, and the rest of the week kind of stayed that way for a while. The weather is definitely turning into more winter weather. Looks like there's a couple more cold days ahead, and then a few warmer days, then back to cold again. So I decided to take a drive around just to kind of see what everything looks like, covered in a little bit of rain, and mostly to try to figure out where all the water collects, and so that way I know exactly where ice patches are going to be when everything finally freezes over. But it doesn't look like the roads are going to be too bad once the snow actually hits, and I don't live too far away from where I work, so transiting shouldn't be too much of a problem. But it is definitely getting wet and definitely getting colder. So we had a potluck this week to celebrate Thanksgiving. It's a little bit early, but it is really the only time that everybody was still around to actually do it. So I decided to make Korean sweet potato casserole, and this is actually by accident because I went to go buy sweet potatoes, and Korean sweet potatoes are not the same thing as American sweet potatoes. Outside of America, sweet potatoes are yams, and sweet potatoes in Korea are something totally different. But it actually worked out pretty good. I was able to make, using the same ingredients that you would use to make a regular sweet potato salad in the States, you can make in Korea using Korean sweet potatoes. The only real difference is they're a little bit whiter and they're a little bit sweeter, and so that kind of works to the advantage a little bit of the sweet potato casserole. As you can see here, I used brown sugar, put some butter in there, some salt, and heavy cream, and then mash that all together just as you would regular mashed potatoes or sweet potatoes. And then put that all in one big bowl, and then taste tested it and decided it needed a little bit more brown sugar. After that, put it in some foil containers, and I was actually going to be taking this the next day, so I made this one day ahead of time and just put it in the containers, and then ended up wrapping it up and then putting it in the fridge and letting it sit there overnight. And then the next day I got it out and then was able to warm it back up and then put the topping on. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to record that part because I had to call my lovely wife and ask her how to do it as I was going along. But the topping consisted of marshmallows, brown sugar, and a bunch of pecans, and put that in the oven for a little while on like 375, and got all warmed back up and had a nice topping on it. And apparently it was okay and edible because by the time I had left the potluck, most of it was gone, so I was happy to see that. So my dad recently sent me a new TV device which lets me watch American news channels, so I've been watching Good Day Tampa Bay, and I'm jealous of the weather that everybody back home is having, because later in the week, this is what I got: a bunch of snow. So during the potluck that we were having, I looked out the window and I thought I saw some snowflakes falling. I said, sure, they can't be snowing, but sure enough, it was snowing. And then after walking outside and kind of looking around a little bit, yeah, it snowed actually pretty good. This is about the most that it snowed, just enough to sit on top of the cars, but not really anything more than that. The ground's still too warm for it to actually stick. Well, the temperature dropped down from about 8 degrees Celsius to about 2 degrees Celsius. And then as night hit, another wave of snow came back through the area. And having lived in Tampa for the last couple of years, this is the first winter and the first snow that I've seen in a very long time, and I don't really miss it, to be honest. I'd much rather have the nice warm Tampa and avoid the snow altogether when possible. But the next day it cleared up and everything was back to normal. Still a little bit chilly, but the snow was all gone and it looked like it hadn't snowed at all the previous day. So I decided to go ahead and make some rustic bread. This is one of the recipes that my lovely wife sent me with, and I've been meaning to make this for a while. I just haven't. Bread's kind of intimidating for me. She tried to simplify it as much as possible. I think sometimes she way overestimates my abilities to bake, but I decided to give it a shot anyway. So this bread recipe is pretty simple. Just a packet of yeast. I think it was 3 3/4 cups of bread flour, and then some salt, and then stir all that together. And in the recipe it says it's supposed to be a very wet dough, So I added as much water as it called for, and then I had to go back and add just a little bit more to it. But I didn't realize how wet the dough would be. It's very glutinous and turns into kind of a gloppy mess. But I was able to combine it all pretty well inside of the bowl. And then once I had it combined in the bowl, you just let it rise for a little bit. And so that's what I did. Just let it sit for a little while and puff up. And I think double in size is what the recipe calls for. So that's what I did. Just let it hang out with a towel over it for a little bit. This also gave me the opportunity to use the new baking mat my wife had sent me also, which is pretty cool. Just a little silicone mat. I never had one of these before, so was happy to be able to use it for the first time. So I floured the mat and then rolled out the bread onto the mat, and this is where I learned exactly how sticky the dough is. Whenever I tried to get it out of the bowl, it really didn't want to come out. It was kind of refusing as much as it possibly could, fighting against me. But I did eventually get it all out and onto the mat, and from there it's just a matter of folding up, trying to make it look nice and presentable, and then letting it rise. While I was doing that, I got invited out to dinner. So I went and had some Korean fried chicken. It was a place that I've gone to a couple of times, and after that we decided to go to a coffee shop that had amazing looking cookies. So I couldn't help myself. I had to get a cookie. And while I was there, I also got a coconut boba drink, which is really good. I'll probably get that again. And then they warmed up the cookie for me, so I had a nice warm cookie on a cold night, and it was really good. Hit the spot. By the time I got back, I don't know what happened. This thing, this bread loaf just all of a sudden decided to blow up, so I kind of had to retamp it and reconfigure what I was working with. The area that I had floured, the bread grew far beyond the bounds of what that flour was, so I ended up with a big sticky mess of trying to re-roll, and eventually just gave up on that, washed the mat off, and started over from scratch. Once I got it all floured out again, I was able to turn the bread over and put it back on the mat, and again, just kind of manipulated it as much as possible to try to get it looking like an actual loaf of bread as much as I possibly could. And after a while, it started looking like what a loaf of bread should look like. Obviously not exact because I don't have that kind of skill. But the recipe said score it on top, make a little X on it. So I tried the best that I could, but the dough was so sticky that it just kind of dragged along and made more of a, I don't know, kind of a Y shape in the middle of it. But I figured it didn't really matter too much. After I pulled it out, I see why the Y was in there, because it just turned into a big bread balloon. But it still looked good, and it was still kind of crackly on top, a little bit crusty on the outside, and felt like bread should feel. So the recipe said let it cool completely, and so I've been scolded before for not doing so. So I let it cool overnight, and first thing in the morning I was anxious to cut into it and see how it did. I had no idea how it was going to turn out, but the first cut into it let me know that I succeeded in some fashion, in some way, because it actually looked like bread on the inside. So I put some butter on it, and actually had a slice of bread for breakfast on Sunday morning. So it was really nice to have homemade bread. I hope everybody's enjoying their nice warm weather back in Florida, and I'll make some more videos in the future as long as everybody keeps watching them. So God bless, and thank you all.